Spiral Dynamics Plum or Ultraviolet. Hello, this is Chris speaking with a video about Spiral Dynamics, second tier, this time Plum, or in Ken Wilber terms Ultraviolet. Spiral Dynamics second tier consists of 6 colors. It's a little bit different in Ken Wilber terminology. He split the second tier into second and third tier. But usually the second tier has 6 colors, just as the first tier also has 6 colors. But the whole topic, the whole theme is totally different. The first tier is about personality, the second tier about soul. Yellow, the first color of second tier, is about finding yourself in a new world with less fear, less compulsion and less ego, and gathering new information. But usually, this is very important, most people who think they are centered in yellow or turquoise are actually centered in green. Being interested in spiritual things is Spiral Dynamics green. To put it into practice daily, that's yellow and maybe further colors. Turquoise is the first color that has access to intuition and knows that anything the mind produces is wrong. So if you still have the least little bit of trust in your thoughts, you cannot be turquoise or beyond. It's impossible. Only if you know 100% sure that everything is bullshit that your mind produces, you can be turquoise or further. And in turquoise, you start listening to your intuition. Then comes the strange color of coral. Coral is trauma therapy. Coral is to kill the last vestiges of your personality. If you still have the slightest inkling of a feeling of I-ness, me-ness, that there is something called whatever your name is, that is separate from the rest of the world of creation, then you cannot be beyond coral. In coral, it's killing all this. Coral is spiritual warfare. Coral is suicide of the personality. Coral is doing the impossible. Coral is Nietzsche's "Thus Spoke Zarathustra." Coral is Jung's Red Book, and so on. And if something ever emerges on the other side of coral, this is called teal. And teal is often confused with turquoise. Turquoise is intuition. And in turquoise there is no more fear and no more compulsion left. Neither is there in coral. Coral has no fear. And well, turquoise is still a little bit naive, teal isn't. Teal is only possible because the personality is gone and you feel in tune with nature because there's nothing left stopping you from that. Teal is looking up from the floor for the first time and seeing the rest of the world and seeing how this thing that you have been calling yourself for a long time, how minute, how minuscule, how tiny, how insignificant it is. Teal is starting to be in tune with the universe, and it's very rare and it's hard to stay there. Now then, what could possibly be plum and aubergine, the next 2 colors? And again, most people who think they're centered in plum or aubergine are not. Most of them are in yellow. Yellow likes to imagine, same green. Green and yellow, they like to imagine that they're super far ahead and super special. But if you have any feeling of that you're special, you cannot possibly be in coral, teal, plum or aubergine. Also, all these people always talk about how beautiful everything is after enlightenment and so on. Most of the time it's bullshit, and the other times it's definitely not plum and aubergine, because plum is a very neutral color. not the color, the state, of course. Yeah, the state of consciousness is very neutral. There's nothing. It's very non-dual. There's nothing positive or negative, so there's no point in describing something as very positive. Plum feels very normal. For the first time in your life, you feel normal. Everything else feels like madness in retrospect. Everything seems clear suddenly, and everything seems the same, and everything seems possible, and everything seems insignificant. It doesn't matter. Even if you were able to do everything now, there's no point in doing it. For what? All sense of separation is gone anyway. So who would be doing anything to whom? It all doesn't make sense. What makes sense in Plum is doing what is in front of you. It's just going with the flow and fulfilling the destiny that has been given to you. There are no more questions, no more doubts. Definitely no emotions. If you still have any emotions, you're not in Plum. If there are still any thoughts occurring in your mind, you're not in Plum. The higher faculties that start occurring in Plum and beyond can only work, can only function, can only come into existence, can only come into the forefront, into action, if all the rest is gone and not in the forefront anymore. If there's any kind of ego left, any kind of thoughts, emotions, desires, it doesn't work. They're the biggest distractions. In Plum, there is no more distractions. There's only the moment. There's only one. There's only now. Everything is clear and everything is a marvel at the same time. But there is no feeling of bliss or something. There is no feeling of joy. It's a feeling of neutrality. Everything is the same. There's no more values, no more discrimination. Usually, but not always, siddhis are kicking in Plum. Supernatural abilities. Or the illusion of having supernatural abilities. Because you see that theoretically it would be possible. But since there's no point in enacting them, who knows if they're really there or not. Also, time stops to make sense. Linear time stops to make sense. The realization that time is not linear, but not as a theoretically mental realization, as a realization in the moment, as a deeper understanding. You can also usually download any kind of knowledge you need at the moment, but it will probably vanish again later. Memory is not something that works well in Plum. And thus it's not a very practical color. Yellow is a practical color, but Plum not. It's very hard to live a normal life centered in Plum, because nothing is more important than anything else. If you ever happen to turn up in Plum, I recommend a holiday. It's really hard otherwise to stay there. You can fall out anytime, although you don't think it's possible. Once you're in Plum, you think, okay, that's it now. There's no way I'm going to leave this again. But it is possible to fall out again. And that is what happens to most people. Those very few who get there, they usually don't stay there for very long. Especially the DMT crowd. It's possible to get to Plum with ayahuasca and DMT, but it's not possible to stay there because the basis is missing. If you have not gone through the previous colors, there's no way you can stay there. Your ego will start telling you from now on that you are in these colors I described. Coral, teal, plum. But it's very unlikely. Your ego thinks that there is a goal, that there's a place to arrive, and then be special. That's what the ego is all about. But in teal and plum, there's no more ego. You have to be very clear about that. If you still think you are someone, you're not in those colors. The last three colors of the second tier have no sense of personality, no thoughts, and no emotions. It's not a place where anyone wants to be. If you're in green or yellow, then you want to be there. But once you're there, it's like, it's like that. Okay, it's kind of anticlimactic, but also cool somehow. A very good example of plum, I would say, is Ken Wilber himself, or ultraviolet in his own terms. C.G. Jung also, after he went through his coral phase, writing his red book, he went to teal and afterwards to plum. Eckhart Tolle, also good example of plum, although he vacillates between teal and plum. Same for Moji. Fritz Perls, for example, one of the founders of Gestalt therapy. Neem Karoli Baba, the guru of Ram Dass, also a good example. Okay, this was a video that many of you asked for and wished for. There you are, now you have it. Have fun. Enjoy your life. Thank you for joining me on Patreon. That really makes the whole thing worth it. Thank you for liking and subscribing and hitting the bell button and sharing the videos with your friends, and see you soon.